let's take a look at interactions. We're going to look at an example of a 2x2 factorial design again, talk a little bit more about the main effects, but this time also bring into the conversation interactions. So interactions are the case where factors can combine together in various ways to impact the dependent variable. And this is called interaction effects. Interaction effects are unique to factorial designs, and they can't be found by performing separate single factor designs. Last week, we did the single factor ANOVA. There was only one independent variable. Now we have two independent variables, and how do those two things work together to create an interaction? So factorial designs provide information about independent variables, the main effects, but they also combine together to produce a result that's different than the individual results, and this produces an interaction. So an interaction is present when two independent variables have a greater influence in combination than you would expect from adding the main effects of each variable together. So we're going to use the words "it depends" when we're talking about interactions. So you might say, is there effect of anxiety on job interview performance? A good answer might be it depends if there's an interaction between that and camera usage. Just keep the words "it depends" in your mind and we'll come back to it. So here's an example of our old study of level A or factor A anxiety and factor B recording performance. We've got some different means in here, so let's take a look. So do we have a main effect for factor A? Well, it looks like we do. We have a mean of 7 for low anxiety and a mean of 4 for high anxiety. So it looks like high anxiety reduces your performance in a job interview. There seems to be a main effect for anxiety. Is there a main effect for factor B, recording performance? It looks like for no camera, the mean is 6, and for camera, the mean is 5. So yeah, there seems to be an effect of camera on your performance in the interview. So we have two main effects, but do we have what's called an interaction? An interaction is going to be an unexpected result in one of the cells or one of the boxes. Who remembers from Sesame Street, one of these things is not like the other? This is kind of like that. You're looking for something unexpected, and this is what an interaction is. So when we have no camera, we have low anxiety had a mean of 8 and high anxiety had a mean of 4. That all makes sense that anxiety does impact your ability to do well in a job interview. And then the camera, we have the same thing where you have low anxiety has a mean of 6 and high anxiety has a mean of 4. So that all makes sense. But let's take a look at no camera and camera. If you have low anxiety and you have no camera, your mean is 8, and if you have a camera, your mean is 6. That makes sense that it's more difficult when there's a camera there. But what if you're in the high anxiety group? If you have no camera, you have a mean of 4, but if you have a camera, you have a mean of 4. That's not expected. What would be expected is that your performance would go down, but it didn't. This represents an interaction effect. So the question is, does a camera impact your ability to perform in a job interview? And you would say it depends. It depends on your anxiety level. It depends. We have a main effect A and a main effect B, but we also have an interaction. And that's where the interaction is right there. That's where we have sort of an unexpected result. We would expect that maybe to be like a 2. It should go down. It didn't go down. So low anxiety applicants scored higher than high anxiety applicants, and that kind of made sense. No camera applicants scored higher than cameras during the interview. That makes sense too. We would expect high anxiety applicants with a camera recording them to have lower scores than everyone, but they don't. They have the same score as high anxiety applicants with no camera. So where this interaction is, and then you go back and try to explain it. So maybe there's something about when you're a highly anxious person that if you feel like you're being watched, it actually ups your performance. So that's where we talk about an interaction. It really depending on your anxiety. Okay, so we have main effect A, main effect B, and an interaction in this case. So let's take a look at another one. This time we have no camera, low anxiety and high anxiety, and you can take a look at the means in the middle. If we look at the main effects, we don't have a main effect for A, we don't have a main effect for B. So if we were doing just single factor ANOVAs, we could walk away and say, well, there's nothing going on here. But take a look and see what's happening in the middle. So if you have no camera with low anxiety, your performance is way up there. But if you have high anxiety and a camera, your score is way up there too. So does a camera impact your job performance or your job interview performance? Well, it depends. It depends on your level of anxiety. This is an interaction. What you'll notice in this case is it kind of forms an X, doesn't it? The 225 scores are kitty corner to each other as well as the 15 scores. So we have sort of an X. When you have scores that kind of cross over like that, that's an indication of an interaction. I'm going to show you a picture of this in just a minute. Okay, let's do another one. Researchers were interested in the effect of drug dosage, low and high, and possible gender differences, male-female, in the reduction of symptoms. So they want to know if drugs helped to reduce negative symptoms. So here is our array. We have factor A is the dosage, low and high. Factor B is gender, male and female. The N in our study is 48. That means all told there's 48 people. But the lowercase n represents how many are in each box or each cell, and that's 12. 12 times 4 is 48. We can look at the means in the middle, and then we can look at the means on the side. So is there a main effect for A, for dosage? Doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like it matters whether you give a low dosage or a high dosage. It's both the same. But is there an effect for gender? Okay, so it looks like males and females had different number of symptoms. Males had 6 and females had 4. Males had more symptoms. But we need to look at the interaction to see what is actually going on. So we're going to identify the type of design, talk about whether there are main effects, whether there's an interaction, and where the interaction is located. So this is actually a 2x2 design because there are 2 levels of factor A and 2 levels of factor B. There was no main effect for A, we talked about that. There's no main effect for B, but there is an interaction. Males with high doses of medication got worse. Let's take a look at that again. So here we go. You would expect there to be a reduction in symptoms based on the medication, a higher dosage, but it looks like the higher dosage in males caused a greater amount of symptoms. So what that means is, let's just say that we ask, is the drug dosage, does it matter? And you would say, well, it depends. If you're a female, higher doses help. If you're a male, they don't help. And so this is where it depends comes into play. Now, if we were just to walk away from this, we would just say that the medicine helped females more than males. But it's a little bit different than that. A low dosage seemed to be working just fine for males, but the higher dosage is where the interaction is at. So again, it depends. And this is what it would look like if we plotted it out. Low dosage is in blue and high dosage is in orange. And you can see the lines crossing each other. That means that there's an interaction. When you have lines that are graphed and they cross, it indicates an interaction. Here's an example of another interaction from a study that was actually done by Glendale Community College students. The trend depended on the ethnic makeup of the people in the study. So whenever you have lines that are crossing in an interaction, or in a ANOVA analysis, 2-factor analysis, you say that there is an interaction. All right, we're going to talk more about this. If you don't have it yet, don't worry, hang in there. We're going to talk about this more.